Today's guest on the rise is Robby Robson, founder of Modern Technical Fund, a pre-seed and seed stage venture firm backing technical founders at the earliest stages. Before launching MTF, Robby started in investment banking, joined Norwest, and spent nearly 5 years at Cowboy Ventures, where she rose to partner. Her debut $22 million fund closed above target earlier this year. And in this episode, we get into what it takes to build conviction early, her path from banking to partner, and what she's learned from building MTF so far. She's one of the best early stage investors in infrastructure, grounded, thoughtful, and quietly building a firm that's going to matter for a long time to come. Hope you enjoy. Robby, thank you so much for hanging out today. I appreciate you. I think your story is really cool. I think on paper, you went from investment banking into Norwest, into Cowboy. You're a podcast pioneer. Started your podcast 4.5 years ago, and now you're a solo GP, which I think is pretty dang cool. Can you just talk to me about what was was there a trigger where you're like, okay, I'm ready to start Cowboy. I'm ready to be a solo. What was was there a catalyst? What did that look like?
Oh, so it's funny. I feel like there's a lot of people in Silicon Valley whose stories start with this vision of where they were going to end up, where they were like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to be a founder. My parents were a founder. I grew up in Silicon Valley. Everyone at Stanford wanted to be, in tech.
Totally.
That is not me at all. I grew up in a relatively small town called Ancaster that's an hour and a half-ish from Toronto. And I really had no idea. I would describe my kind of career trajectory as just following opportunity and building skills over time. So it was less of I knew I always wanted to start my own fund. And really, I just kept going after, for my entire career so far, opportunities as they kind of came up and giving myself the ability to do the best possible work I could. So what that kind of looked like when I was at Cowboy. So I was there because the fund I was at before that was Norwest, multi-stage fund. I loved Norwest. I had such a good experience there. And while I was there, the fund size increased pretty dramatically. So it went from $1 billion to $2 billion, wow, which meant they wanted to go from just mostly focusing on early stage on the enterprise venture team to doing multi-stage and doing Series C, Series Ds and deploying bigger checks. Yep. That wasn't what interested me. Most of the things I was bringing in, sourcing, investing in were seed Series A. And so I wanted to go somewhere where I could just focus on the earliest stages of investing. Cool. So that's why I went to Cowboy. So it wasn't I knew I wanted to do seed. It was just kind of seeing what kind of work I wanted to do and then where was best to do it. So that's why I went to Cowboy. And then, to be honest, starting the fund was the exact same, where I was at Cowboy for 5 years, also had a great experience there, was just focused on seed, was the infra and cyber partner there. And I loved it, had a great experience, but it's a generalist fund. And I really wanted to build something sector focused because I was seeing what folks at Cybersecurity and Teammate, a lot of the really well-known cyber Israeli VCs were doing, really building communities and networks that could supercharge founders that were trying to build cyber companies. And I didn't see any funds doing that super well in the US. And so in order to do that kind of work and support founders the way I wanted to, I went to build my own fund because that was the thing I needed to do the kind of work I needed to do.
Awesome.
If that makes sense. So it was not this vision. It was really, I see a need in the market and then went and built something to service it.
How did you always know you wanted to be a venture capitalist?
No.
Or were you
know what
in
that
IB?
was.
Okay, you didn't. Honestly, neither did I.
When I was an undergrad, so I went to an undergraduate business school in Canada called Ivy, which puts a lot of people into banking and
Where
consulting.
in Canada is that?
At London, Ontario.
Oh, let's go.
You would only go there for school, or they have a really good local hockey team, so Canadian. But yeah, no, I had no idea. I quite literally didn't know what venture capital was when I was at university. I knew what private equity was because I knew a lot of people went into the buy side and went into investing after. But yeah, I had no idea. And even when I was in banking, I didn't know I wanted to be a venture capitalist. I just loved working with founders because I was doing just sell side M&A. And so I was okay, I want to work with founders for a longer period of time. And so I was like, okay, something on the buy side, like maybe growth equity, maybe venture. And then it was just through like the interview process where it just kind of like naturally happened that I like connected with the early stage Norwest team. And it was probably because I was pitching why crypto was a really interesting investment space. And most like PE firms are like, who, what?
I love it.
Which is actually really funny because I am not a crypto investor at all. And I was pitching Ethereum. This is like back in like 2016. And it was funny because even at Norwest at the time, they didn't have anyone really doing crypto. And they were like, oh, like they liked that I did the work to map out a space and pitch it to them in the process. But they were like, yeah, we're not really into this space. So I put like $100 into like Bitcoin at the time. It's worth $30,000 right now, which is hilarious because
Robby,
like I'm not a crypto investor. And I'm like, my best investment ever is this random crypto investment.
That's incredible.
I don't even think I answered your question, but anyway, there's my like
you
random
totally answered the question. I didn't know about venture either, but I think so when I started hiring investors, the classic like square in box mold was like the investment banker moving into venture capital, right?
Yeah.
You have like the Goldman analyst or like the Catalyst analyst into investment. And then the pendulum swung a little bit to like the highly technical operators that everyone wanted. Now it's swinging back a little bit more. It's just rare to see someone go from IB to like very early stage C. Typically you're like modeling. You want to do some like growthy kind of work or the diligence side. So I think that's really cool that you just went straight down.
Yeah, it's really funny. I don't even really know how it happened. Like it was one of those things where I think like the things I just happened to be interested in led me there, but it was so unintentional, which I think is actually kind of a good thing. Because I think if you like early in your career, obviously it's good to have like a vision of where you want to end up. But I also think early in your career, you don't really know what your vision is. You don't have enough experience or skills a lot of the time. Or for most of us, there are some obviously like founders at like age 17 who are like, I know what I want to build.
Totally.
But I think like when you don't know, just following opportunities and like following skill building and following like people who you think are going to teach you a lot is like a really good way to kind of build your career.
Totally. I fell into hiring investors because I used to hire CTOs, and then that pendulum shift swung in like 2020 where a lot of folks were like looking for the technical folks. You focus on technical founders. Yeah. Do technical founders need a different type of partner on the investing side than non-technical founders?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think that in any space that you invest in, founders want to know that you understand what they're building and like why they're building it and what the tailwinds are, because otherwise any advice that you give or any help that you give is not going to be that helpful in general. So technical founders, just like fintech founders or consumer founders, they want to know that you understand why their product is different and special. So you understand kind of like the landscape, what's going on. You understand the tailwinds, and you understand like why they're differentiated so that you can then help propel them forward. For me, having a non-traditional background from like a technical investor perspective, because I would actually say that there is and you probably know this even more than me, but I would say for technical investing in like dev tools and cyber, actually a lot of folks do want someone with a technical background. Totally. I don't even know if it's funny because like, some people are like, yeah, you're like technical because I can like code, like I build my own website and stuff like that. But I would say I'm a very like basic technical person, but I do know enough and have like taught myself enough that I can understand the tailwinds and understand what's net new. And I also think that like, especially now the tech cycles are so quick that you kind of need to relearn every time anyway. So if you had a CS degree like 12 years ago, it's like, that's not going to tell you about the new age of like AI dev tools. Totally. So I do think that like for technical founders, it's the same as any other category where you want to understand like the trends, tools, landscape of what you're investing in. And then I would say like the niche that I kind of fill for technical founders, especially when I'm working with first-time founders, is they're generally amazing on product and engineering. Those are usually the divisions that they've worked in or run before, but they haven't done go-to-market. And it's really important to me to back founders that are very commercial and they really care about solving user problems, not just building interesting technology. Totally. And so for me, what that means is like, I can really complement them on the go-to-market side. And I know we'll get into the fund and why I built it in a bit, but that was really the need that I saw where I could fit in, is like helping technical founders bring their products to market super early. And so I just kind of found this niche by really understanding the profile of founder that I've been serving.
Incredible. And your name comes up all the time when I'm talking to other infra investors, security founders. I think it's, you've made an awesome name for yourself, candidly. It's probably been the last couple of years with AI. Like, how is AI converging with infra and security? Like, what does it feel like in that arena right now?
Yeah. So AI is affecting every space, but I would say what is very interesting about the spaces that I invest in is you have new opportunities for AI to automate. I'd say that's pretty ubiquitous across every sector. But then in addition to that, you have to enable AI. So on the infrastructure and security side, those are kind of like net new opportunities that don't really exist in other spaces. So I would say we're still very much on the AI to automate side, even within security and infra. There's a ton going on in AI infrastructure and AI security, but I would say those are very early as far as actual adoption by customers and users. But AI to automate, I mean, like every single one of my companies in some way, shape, or form is automating workflows with AI. And then I have a couple that I would put in like the enablement bucket. Like I've got an agent identity company because if you think about identity as a concept and instead of looking at humans as like, you know, me being the identity, it's an agent that you're going to enable to do a bunch of things. How you give them access and authorization, like that's all going to change. So I put that in the enablement bucket, but it's still a very early segment.
Totally.
So I'd say like that segment is going to be really interesting over time, but it's still very early today.
I love it. You said you spent some time in Israel.
Yeah, a lot of time in Israel.
Is that like all cyber? Is it a little bit of a blend over there? I feel like some of the best like cyber investors and cyber founders are Israeli.
Yeah. And actually, I want to give some background on this because it's quite funny. Like so many people are like, oh, so are you Israeli? Or you like, I kind of look like I could be Jewish. And I'm like, I'm neither. I literally just love the Israelis and like think they're amazing founders.
Totally.
Basically, the background on this is when I was at Norwest, one of our like GPs on the team, Dror, who's now like running the enterprise team there, he's a fucking phenomenal investor. And he's also just like a really great human.
Awesome.
He was based in Israel at the time. And so I kind of got to know like working with Israelis and started building a little bit of a network there. And then when I invested or worked on investments in Israeli founders in the US, like Dremio, then I worked with him too. So it kind of like naturally happened. And then based on the sectors that I'm covering, there's obviously so much opportunity in cyber and infra. And I know that Israel is really like known for cyber, but a lot of kind of the same skills that someone coming out of like the 8200 unit in the IDF would learn around like, because so many like problems that you would deal with are also infrastructure related. Like how do you manage a lot of data to make decisions? How do you like optimize your technical team? Like those are a lot of areas that they're innovating on the IDF as well. So I look at both, all sets of categories. So I would say like data infra tooling, dev tooling, and security in Israel. And yeah, it's a huge part of my strategy. So of the 9 investments I've made so far, 3 of them are in Israel. And the last thing I'll say on that, because everybody approaches Israel differently who spends time there in the US, I care a ton about partnering with local partners there, like local VCs.
Awesome.
So I work very closely with TLV partners. We've done 3 investments together.
Amazing.
But like really appreciate like teams like Team8 and YL and like other folks that I can work with there. But that's really important to me and for my model because I can be a nice US go-to-market partner, but I know that they get access to the best deal flow and they,
Totally.
you know, are very integrated with the ecosystem there.
How is like the venture ecosystem in Israel? Is it like fairly built out and mature? Is it still like emerging? I feel like there's a lot of firms that have like a partner there. I haven't seen like a ton of offices there.
Yeah.
Like how is that?
Yeah, so it's quite mature for local firms. So there's like a number of really well-known firms there that have been around for some time, like Lila and YL, and then I would put like in Team8 and then TLV partners and like Cybersecurity. It's still like newer-ish. And then some of the multi-stage funds have really big presence there. Like Bessemer has a really big team there. And then, yeah, there are a lot of other funds that have like one partner. But I would say that it is it's a pretty efficient ecosystem because everybody, like it's just such a different country from the US because everybody's mandated to go through military training. And so they all know each other and are all like interconnected through the unit they were in. And then 8200 is a very well-known unit because it's a security research unit. And
that's like the SEAL, that's like the unit, right?
It's the unit.
Yeah,
but it's funny. It's like quite a big unit. There's a lot of people that come out of it. But it's like everybody's interconnected. So I'd say that ecosystem feels smaller in a sense because everybody knows one another. But they have like, fun fact, they have the highest number of unicorns per capita.
Interesting.
Which is not super surprising because you see how many amazing companies come out of Israel.
Super interesting.
And then when you like see the kind of training, like that at age like 18, 19, they're going through intense military training when like everybody in the US and Canada, like myself included, was like partying and like doing some school. So it's like a very different kind of like training for then going in and building a startup.
So I want to move to Cowboy a little bit. And your path to Cowboy was through Norwest. Curious, you're at Norwest. I hire investors, and I know at that time you were getting a lot of recruiting emails to join other funds. How did you land on working with Eileen? And I'm curious, what are like 1 or 2 things that like really caught your eye and got you to take the call?
Yeah, so at the time, I knew that I wanted to do seed investing, which again just came from like looking at the work that I really enjoyed doing and the founders I really enjoyed working with and who I was sourcing. And so much of what I was doing at Norwest was super early stage, like sourcing seeds or very early Series A's and companies like Six River, like Fire. Awesome. So that part kind of narrowed my scope of search to just seed funds. And I know of Aileen because of All Raise, because I was part of All Raise, which is like an amazing organization that helps promote female and like non-binary folks in the entire startup ecosystem. Awesome. And so I had known of her and had kind of looked up to her and had a lot of common connections. And then when I was talking to, there were two GPs there at the time, Aileen and Ted, and it just kind of fit the right opportunity because it was a generalist fund, but they were very interested in me coming in as a sector specialist and just covering certain areas. And so
you were a specialist over there.
I was a specialist over there. Yeah, I was just doing infra and cyber.
Awesome.
And then when I was, which was very similar to what I was doing when I was at Norwest, it was a very like technical enterprise team.
Can I just say at Norwest, the very first VC event I ever went to was a Norwest event. And it was like a casino kind of theme. It was on the water.
A water bar. We were probably at the same one.
It was so fun. I'm talking about it right now. This was like 5 years ago. maybe longer. Sorry, continue.
No. I love it. So to me, it just kind of like fit what I was looking for. And I didn't try to, when I kind of thought about all the possible seed funds I could go to at the time, it just felt like it was a really interesting opportunity for me to help build out like specific practice for a fund. And I got along really well with the team and like liked them a lot. And so it just kind of like worked. I hate to say this, but it was like the vibe was right. Like it just like, it felt right.
Vibes are very important. Vibes are, I was talking with a GP this morning, just raised a very big, I won't say the fund number because I think it'll be a tell. But we were talking about scorecard and like, vibe is a very, very real thing.
Yeah. And like, it's really hard. I know it gets made fun of a lot, but even with founders, like there's something about someone's confidence in what they've done and what they want to do. And when people talk about someone having a good vibe, I really think that's what it comes down to is like confidence. And that is a really important thing in general. Is like someone confident that they can do a good job. Are they confident in their, like what they've done before? So anyway, I think it's like made fun of a lot, but I think there's like there's something to it.
Confident, but like not an ass is the right combo.
Confidence rooted in like real things.
Totally. I am so curious. I am a nerd who's obsessed with venture, and I've admired Aileen forever. Are there like one or two things that you took from Cowboy as you started MTF here that shaped you as an investor today?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many things. And especially as I get like deeper into building the fund and building internal processes, there are a lot of things from being at Cowboy that like have like resurfaced. So for instance, when I was there, for a good chunk of the time I was there, we didn't have a CFO. So me, along with like other folks at the firm, would like own the fund model at different times. And one of the things I took from like the way Aileen kind of like built things, and candidly, my fund model is actually very similar to what we did at Cowboy. It's like 25-ish like investments, and you want every investment to have the ability to return the fund. And so that's how I think about every investment is I look at it and I'm like, okay, it's like, what is my initial ownership? How big do I actually think this can get? And obviously you want every company to turn into like $1 billion company, but you have to kind of judge valuation in your ownership by like what you actually think is possible in that space. So for instance, like I invested in this really awesome security data company called Run Reveal, and that is one of the biggest, stickiest, like hairiest also areas in security infrastructure. It's like Splunk, Sumo Logic. So I'm like, that can be a really, really big company. And so like, that's one that I could pay up for and be like, hey, I actually think this could like multi-time return the fund.
Very cool.
And like others, if they were like earlier, like pre-seed stage, and it's like, they're kind of being formed, they're starting in kind of a niche. And yes, it can move into a platform over time, but it's like less clear. Like you have to kind of squint harder. Then that's where you're like, okay, then like this is more pre-seed valuation versus like, paying a little bit more for it.
Do you have a preference of doing like pre-seed versus seed?
Honestly, no. Like I think, so I was at a dinner this week with a bunch of emerging managers and like GPs. Fun. And they did it like Jeffersonian style. So we were all like having this open discussion. And one of the questions was, do entry prices matter in today's world? Because it does feel like, like winners are picked and like TAMs are infinite.
Totally.
And I do, entry prices matter. Like that's like the net of it. But being in the right companies, working with the right founders, that matters the most. Like picking matters most. And so especially when like it really does seem like one, the winning companies and teams are being picked earlier and earlier, and like more capital is flowing to them. So capital does become a moat in that case. Or like two, like you like just working with like an amazing founder, like they can kind of keep increasing their TAM and like bringing in kind of like side areas. And so you can end up with like a $20, $30 billion outcome in a space with just like an amazing founding team that keeps kind of expanding versus like, you know, going after one that you're like, oh, this could be like a good player in this space, but not like the best of the best. Like there's like much more limitations there. So I just think being in the best companies is the most important thing, period. And then you kind of have to assess like, okay, how much risk is there? Or like, how much am I really guessing that this could be the best possible team? Like, how much do I know or not? And then that's what factors into valuation.
Where do you say, like geography-wise, Bay Area, New York, Israel? Are those like the three main hubs you would say that you look at the most?
So I would say very, very overweight Bay Area, especially right now, and then Israel second. And also in Israel, like most teams are in person. There are a few, like I have one dev tool company that's remote first there, and I would say dev tool companies, that's actually like pretty much the norm.
Cool.
But no, it's funny actually. I have a team in Austin, I have a team in Denver, so still a little bit like spread. But I would say like the gravity has pulled more and more folks to the Bay Area.
I am loving the Bay Area right now. I moved back earlier in the year, and I'm honestly, there's such a little buzz going on here. Like I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I've met a lot of like 21 to 25-year-old founders, and they are like absolutely brilliant. I brought an intern on earlier this summer. I started putting content out. He's the man behind the content, and
Love it.
Absolutely like brilliant. Like this cohort is just really fun and like exciting and energizing to work with.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, are you spending more time with like the first time founder, kind of new grad? Do you gravitate more towards like the second time founder? How do you think about like founder profile?
So I care most about why that founder or why those founders are the best fit for the opportunity that they're going after. And I actually think the younger, scrappier, let's iterate and like move really quickly and break things works really well for some spaces and not as well for others. So for instance, I think in dev tools, a lot of open source stuff, like that profile works really, really well because like things are still getting figured out. You can kind of build in the open. You're working with a lot of like smaller companies to start with in a lot of cases. I think in cyber, it's generally, and like this is not like I like would love to back some like really amazing young like smart founders that are just like learning really quickly and doing this the right way. But generally in cyber, you have to build like very hardened software because like mid-market and up teams, like security teams, are not going to give you access to a ton of their data, not going to let you like automate tickets, automate workflows if there's any chance that you're going to like mess up. And like, you, not to go back to like run reveal too many times, but if you look at what they're building,
it's like,
yeah, but it's like a next gen, it's like the security data platform that a company is running their security practice on. Like a 20-year-old coming out of school, I have a hard time figuring out like, do they even know what's required to build a platform like that? You know, like that team came from like Cloudflare and Segment. Like they know how to build really, really strong data piping and also like how to deliver like a high quality service, which has like a lot of components involved.
How did you meet that team?
I actually met that team. So it's funny. It was like multi-pronged at the same time. I love how you just lit up.
You clearly like this team. This is great.
I do, but also it was like a very like, it was a really sweet story in a sense. So I was hearing about them from friends at a couple of their customers who were like, yeah, we really like this product. Like, this is like, we always rip out security products and this is one of the best ones. But then I was having lunch with a really, really close friend of mine, this guy, John Cowgill, who's a GP at Costa Noa.
I love him.
And also, fun fact, John was one of the few people that I kind of, when I was like still figuring out if I wanted to start my own fund, I talked to. And he was my first LP check. Literally didn't know my strategy or anything. It was just like, I'm your first check.
Amazing.
Like, amazing. Like, there honestly, no better feeling. And now I really understand and appreciate like when I like commit quickly and like I have really a lot of conviction, why founders feel so like almost emotionally attached to that. Cause I was like, John is forever like my person. But we were having lunch and the team was moving really quickly. They already had some really awesome customers. This is like way earlier this year. And he was talking about how he was like excited and really wanted to double down. And I was like, yeah, like this sounds super interesting. And then I like flew to Austin, met the CEO, met the CTO and SF here. And like, we got it together really quickly. It's an SF company and Austin company. Cool. So they're kind of building both places. But yeah, it was just a very like sweet, like, cause like, I don't know, when I was at both Norwest and Cowboy, we were like a lead fund, really like that. And like we would collaborate where we could, but with ownership targets, it was really, really hard.
Totally.
And so like this was kind of that like a really special moment where I was like, oh my God, like this is so fun. I get to like fully do this deal with a really close friend of mine, and we get to like do it together, and just kind of like open stuff up. So anyway, it was just a very
That's
fun
amazing. Now
story.
I now love I go John.
Yeah,
you got me all fired up on John. Like,
he's
let's
the
freaking
best.
go. Let's freaking go. The other one that I just wanted to ask you, just because I like hearing like the background of how you meet these different founders, was Dremio. Like, I love Dremio. I've been following them over the years.
Oh
like,
my God, yeah.
Any background there?
This is like a really old one. So this was a pretty preemptive Series B, but it was like very early. I want to say they had like either like they had like an IBM style, like kind of old school, like customer maybe, but it was like very, very early.
Yep.
And this was also really interesting. So an associate that I had worked with before, who he actually left before we did Dremio, but he'd already met with them. And so it was like tracking them. And I can't remember what it was. I think it was like at the time, Apache Arrow was just becoming really popular, and it was like a tracked company. And then also I worked with Rama on it, who's now at Menlo, but like him and I worked pretty closely at Norwest. Totally. So I think it was just like a combination of things, like working all together. And then if I remember correctly, I think Tomasz had done the Series A when he was at Redpoint, and it was the company was just getting like more momentum and more hype. So it wasn't like a super interesting like sourcing finding story. But I will tell you that it was one of the hardest ones to like really diligence and understand the differentiation, because the data space is really, really hard. And I would say I consider myself a like strong security dev tool investor and data analytics investor. But when you get like into like more databases and like more technical data stuff, like it gets like pretty intense pretty quickly.
Totally.
And they had like a really interesting technology where they basically created at the time, they created a reflection of your data store that was very easy to query. But even understanding how it all worked was like, it was a lot.
Interesting. So I know I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'm curious, like on the deals that you're doing, like when you diligence them, coming from like IB and working at a place like Norwest, like what's the difference how you diligence a company pre-seed, seed at MTF versus any difference when you were doing it at Norwest? Like how does that feel like?
Yeah, so I would say how I diligence now is very similar to how I diligence at Cowboy, because like same stage, all pre-seed, seed. How I diligence at Norwest was different because we were doing, everything that I worked on was like seed to like Series B. So a lot of times there was like customers, or there was like more product and stuff to look at, and like
Totally.
What has the team done to date? How have they operated? Versus most of the time when I'm investing now, like sometimes there are customers if I'm doing a seed, a lot of times there aren't. So really of like the different areas you could actually diligence, it's really like, it really falls into like team, product, market, and traction. A lot of times you don't have product and you almost always don't have traction. So it's really like team and market. And really it's not the market, it's the market tailwind.
Yep.
So it's like what is changing about this market to like create an opportunity. And I would say almost all of the companies I invest in, there is so either like net new market or replacement market, there is like some significant shift that totally changes the dynamic in a market that makes something possible that wasn't before.
Cool.
So to give you like an example, the Drata investment. So at the time, this is like late 2020. If you looked at Gartner research reports at the time, they would have told you that compliance software was like a $300 million market. It was like nothing, which is hilarious because there's like multiple multi-billion dollar companies built in that space. But there were a few things happening in the market. So like one, they were just like, and there were just like more and more and more, and this is also like COVID time, like attacks happening. Companies were adopting more and more vendors. And before we made the investment, like kind of the years leading up to it, things like SOC 2 were not required to sell to mid-market. It was like only if you were really like selling to big enterprise. And so the number of companies that needed SOC 2 compliance and also like all the other compliance standards were pretty limited.
Totally.
Suddenly it like changed overnight where everyone was like, well, I want all my vendors to be SOC 2 compliant. And so it was like your TAM went to like everyone. It was like every single company. And it was like a sales blocker because like you couldn't sell unless you were SOC 2 compliant. So it was like every single company suddenly needed this software. And it feels like overnight the TAM just like completely changed. And then the other thing that was interesting that the Drata team came up with was, what if you, because like now if compliance is going to be almost a sales thing and you wanted it to be something you were showcasing to customers, what if you could tell your customers at any point during the year if they were in or out of compliance, so that you knew, like, you know, you do a once a year audit instead of just automating that. What if you could tell them like 6 months in, oh, you were still in compliance? And that was a very new concept that very much tied to this like go-to-market sales thinking of like what you could enable with compliance. So it was just like very, very interesting. But it was it was like tailwind-based investment as opposed to like, oh, the TAM is this big and this company has this product feature and like they're going to go after it. It's like something changed.
I love SOC 2 compliance.
Same.
Love it. No, in all seriousness. So you raised a fund in probably the hardest fundraising environment in at least the last decade, coming off of ZERP. LPs have, and you know this because you actually introduced me to the very first LP. I won't say their name out loud, but I asked Robby, I asked you a couple of months ago. We started curating this LP network because the through line after meeting a whole bunch of folks like you were frustrations on fundraising at the Fund 1 or the Fund 2 with LPs taking calls saying they have real appetite to write you a check. You take the call. It's clear as day after. They wanted to establish a relationship for allocation in Fund 4. There wasn't a world they were writing you a check.
Yeah.
You gave me someone who is incredible, and I'm incredibly grateful for you. Were there any moments where you were like, a little nervous about raising the fund? Was it smooth sailing the whole way? Like, how was that?
No, I got like mad humbled. So I left Cowboy in June of 24.
And you knew, did you start talking to LPs before you left? Or
No. I didn't talk to LPs before I left because like I wanted the team support. I wanted to tell LPs the whole thing. And actually like the Cowboy team was incredibly supportive. Like,
awesome.
You know, did like invested, like were really helpful with references, all those things. So I left and I started fundraising right away. And I think I was also like, one, you just don't know what you don't know. But I like came out and I was like, you know, I've made some and like been part of some really good investments. Like I've been at some amazing firms. Like this is going to be easy. Like my strategy in a way is like fairly linear. It's like the same type of investing I was doing before, same sectors. I've got a great story, like all these things. So I came out and I'm like, I'm going to be the hottest commodity.
Totally.
So got so humbled. So in July 2024, I started meeting with LPs and everyone's like, interested. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, so you're interested. So like, how much are you going to invest? Yeah. And there are a lot of them. So one of the things that's really hard is like, you don't get really any benefit on the LP side for being like the first. Like people say you can give like better economics or whatever to people who come earlier, like better fees. And it's like, in reality, that never happens, at least from what I've heard. And so
it's not like venture. It's not like pre-seed, seed at this, like everyone gets the same treatment.
Usually, like some people will say like, oh, if you come in early, you'll get better terms or whatever. But like, I have not seen anybody hold to that because then like later LPs will be like, what the fuck? I'm not going to do this. And the other difference between companies and funds is like, you usually will not have an LP that is like, you know, 75, 80% of your fund. You shouldn't do that. You should have diversity.
Right.
So like you need a lot to hit. Like for me, my largest checks are 25% of the fund, which is actually like quite high. But like that's like the very, very most.
Yep.
And so what that means is you need like multiple big checks to come through and like nobody really wants to go first. So my very first believer, and I feel like I can talk openly about this.
Awesome.
But Chris Duvos at Ahoy Capital was like my first like really big believer.
Aww.
And like
let's go, Chris.
Yeah, he was amazing. And like I think like one of the things that we really connected on is like my desire to really build like a special community that was hyper tailored to helping these founders succeed. And I'd done a lot of community building in the past. There were a lot of proof points behind it. And he was very early in other like community focused funds. And so for him, it was like kind of pattern matching to that.
Awesome.
Him committing really early, I didn't even appreciate it at the time. And like as time went on, I really appreciated it, like how hard that was for him to do. And like he was like my first kind of like big commit, big believer. And then also he's like such a legend on the LP side of things. So he like is somebody that a lot of other people will look to and be like, oh, okay, like that's like clearly we have to pay attention to this fund. But yeah, I definitely like in the first couple months got like really humbled in the sense that like I felt like everybody was going to want to invest. And then everybody was just kind of like waiting around the hoop. They were just like, call me a final close. And I was like, well, it's like chicken and an egg. Like if I don't get first close, then I won't get final close.
I talked to someone the other day. They did close a fund. It was between, I don't want to tell. So it was between like 50 and 100 million. It was a sizable fund. Talked to 450 LPs during that raise process. And that to me is just like mind-numbing. That's like mind-numbing. It's brutal.
I talked to 200 and I had a ton of passes. So, and I totally get that.
Totally.
I think it is and sorry if I'm like jumping ahead to like other questions too, but if I could give one piece of fundraising advice, treat it like a sales process with like pipeline and like pipeline coverage. And basically the way I did it, and I think this is why it was so effective. So I got to first close, and like you also just want to build momentum.
Totally.
So you start like close as many like friendlies as you can.
Did you already know when you were going to do a first close? Like when you set out the target, were you like, okay, at this one, when I have this committed, I'm going to do the first close? Was that already mapped out?
Not really. Like I kind of just was like, okay, when I feel like I have enough, and in my mind, the minimum would be like 6 or 7 of like the 20 target that I had. So I ended up getting a bit above that to do first close.
Oversubscribed.
Yeah, well, I got
Let's
oversubscribed. Actually, I'll tell you. So I get to first close. This is like October 24, and then like this is really where my fundraising strategy changed, because this is when I realized that like, you know, you kind of need to force it. It's kind of like with companies when they're fundraising too. Like if you're not top priority, which usually means you're creating some urgency of like, I'm going to close on this date, then like you will never be top priority for folks. So I basically, like October got to first close. I spent the next 2 months like drumming up pipeline, talking to every single LP I could. Then beginning of January, I look at my pipeline and I'm like, okay, do I feel like I have enough like coverage of folks that'll commit? And then I literally just emailed out. Someone asked me for this email recently. I looked at it and it was kind of ballsy. I literally was just like, final close.
Let's go.
Next month. Literally, I was just like, final close, like coming or not. And the crazy thing is, I suddenly got so many people converted.
There was a hit rate there?
Such a high hit rate.
Let's
because
go.
so many of them too, like they liked me, but they just like needed to like a forcing function. And then the thing is, it ended up quite competitive, where I was like, well, for some folks, I can't take like multiple really big checks. So then it became like this like competitive process, but I made people pay attention to me by like having enough confidence in like the pipeline I had built. And then like forcing them to like prioritize my raise. And it really, really helped. And then it also but it's like one of the things that I see so many other emerging managers do that I think is like a huge, like it creates a huge problem for them, is they won't say like, this is going to be my final close. They'll just endlessly kind of be like fundraising. And the problem with that is like, you never force yourself to like the top of someone's list.
Yep.
And then at the same time, like if you really think about it, if I like force final close like a month and a half after,
sure.
and all these folks I'd already spent time with, for the type of LP I'm going after, I'm way too small for
Who were the LPs that you were going after when you first started?
Family offices and fund of funds that specialize in funds that are like sub 50 million for the most part.
Cool.
So like for all of my folks, I was like ICP. So like, you know, I spent time with like some of the like, you know, U Chicago, like that kind of profile, Yale,
Perfect.
but I'm like too small for them.
Yep.
So for the profile of folk that I was going after, when I did that in January, in my head, I was like, you know, I've already met with all these folks at least once, if not like a couple times. I'm giving them like another like month and a bit to do work.
Totally.
If they don't come in, then like whatever, then I'm gonna have to drum up new pipeline anyway. So I might as well like
Seriously.
final close on this group, obviously hoping I was gonna get to final close. But like if you don't do that, then you will just endlessly be in this like loop. And also I think there's like some level of like confidence that this shows LPs too, because I just like felt like I was like owning the process instead of letting it own me. I was like, I have the pipeline. And then the crazy thing is I did have someone drop pretty last minute, and I was able to like fill it in a second, because I just like looked and I went to like 3 different groups. I'm like, one of you is going to take this and like move fucking fast. And 2 of them tried to come in and I was like, sorry. So I think like just really going in and like, you know, running a tight process.
You're such a badass. So we're building this like library of resources for emerging managers, and we're going to put it on the site. I'm literally going to take this clip of everything that you just said and I think it's so perfect.
I hope some LPs that watch this and they're like, she squeezed us.
So you did mention community on that piece. And I feel like community is core to MTF, like as a fund and a strategy. You did Modern Angels, over 400 like badass women, angel investor, operator type. Like you know how to build a community. How are you incorporating it with MTF? Like where are you where are you leaning in most there?
Yeah. So actually, let me first give you like at least my definition and view of what makes a great community. I think a great community, it has purpose, has a very specific purpose and mission, because I see a lot of communities of like engineers in the Bay Area, women in tech. And it's like, what is the purpose of this? Like, why are people coming to this community? And one of the reasons Modern Angels has stayed around for so long is because there's a very specific purpose, is to help get deal flow to awesome female operator angels. And so it is where they go to find angel investments and to talk about different angel investments.
Awesome.
So there's a purpose behind it. And so for the communities that I've built that like surround Modern Technical Fund, they're very specific and purpose built. So I have my team of technical buyers who help with product definition. So these are folks who are like heads of security, heads of tech, heads of data, and they help my founders define what their early product will be and give them very specific feedback on like the types of features that other mid-market enterprise or whatever companies would want.
Totally.
And then I have the technical buyers who were the first sales, marketing, technical documentation, et cetera, builders go-to-market folks at companies. So they can go to my founders and be like, when I was the only marketing person at Drata or at like Gitpod or whatever, here's what I did. And so it's just very specific and very tailored. And I think that's what makes communities successful. Because if you just have like general communities, it's like, why am I here? Why am I part of this? And if people can't answer that, then it's like very hard to keep engagement high.
I love it. I think Andreessen, kind of pioneered like the platform, and I see them as like kind of like gold standard of platform. But I think the emerging funds that have relationships and have folks like you have involved and willing to support founders is such an incredible advantage and like such a great reason a founder. If I were a founder and I had the option to work with a fund where I had resources from Drata helping out, right? And like awesome engineering, awesome growth, right? And like a fund that didn't, right? Like that's a clear lean in for me. I think that's super cool. I think I read somewhere there was like some sort of CyberStarts inspiration involved also. Was there something there?
So I think that like one of the funds that I look up to most that I think was just a super effective fund at their strategy was CyberStarts, because they were hyper-focused and built a model that helped accelerate the founders that they were trying to serve. And they came in and they were like, what should inform the best cyber investments and like new cyber startups? It's the customer user perspective. And they tied that to their fund. And I thought that was just super, super smart and well thought out. And I didn't really see any funds really doing that in the US. I saw a lot of funds that were, like focusing on cyber, but they didn't have like programs that were so hyper tailored to like helping accelerate cyber. And I do this also for like my engineering and data founders as well. But I was like, what if you could build a community similar to what they did that was hyper focused to accelerating technical founders? And it was just very much like looking at the founder as your customer and saying like, how can I serve this customer? And I just loved that mindset. I just felt like it like was the way that venture should be.
Love it.
And so, I like took a lot of inspiration from that. And they aren't the only ones too. Like a lot of other, like Teammate does a really good job of this too. And I just like really anchored on that as being like, oh, this is how venture should be done. Like you should have customers and buyers and users as integrated as possible. And if you as a fund can help enable that, then like that makes you super valuable.
Robby, I'm totally gonna hit you up in a little bit. I just hired someone at Nucleus. Like their only focus is to build out this like next gen community of highly technical, rising juniors, seniors, like new grads who are software engineers with a genuine interest to eventually make the transition into venture.
Oh, cool.
And hopefully it hits. We'll see if it hits. Something like Modern Angels like that would be great.
I love it.
For just like defining deals and founder partnerships, I wrote like a couple of quick notes. And I think like the one question I had, like which founder story, if you had to pick one, which founder story captures best of like what you're looking for in the technical founder? Like who is like the, like kind of like the bulls, and I'm sure there's like a bunch in your portfolio.
Yeah.
If there's one founder where like even maybe on paper you had like a little bit of a gut feeling like, ooh, this is going to be like a good meeting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is there one or two that you can maybe talk about there?
So I have to talk about Drata with this one because I feel like they just capture like everything that I look for in founders now. So it's funny now because it looks like such an obviously good investment, like tailwind, timing, whatever, team is amazing. But at the time, it was not super obvious because they were second-time founders, but their first company was selling to universities. It was an ed tech company.
Interesting.
So like they were very outside of like cyber. They were based in Seattle. Like just was very kind of like didn't hit the trends that you usually would look for of like, oh, they worked at this like cyber infra company. And so it just like looked very non-traditional. But then when you talk to the team, they were so customer and user obsessed. And and by the way, at the time they had like no lines of code. I remember asking the CEO, Adam, in the meeting, he was like showing me, I didn't know it was a Figma design. He was like showing me design. I'm like, oh, what happens if you click here? He's like, this is literally a like design. There's nothing in here. But every feature that he was thinking about adding in was so informed by the customer perspective, because they had done some of the best customer interviews I'd ever seen and like pulled out like where the gaps were, and they were so good at translating customer feedback into product specs.
That's awesome.
So I had to define like what I look for in founders. It's that ability to really listen and understand the customer perspective, be obsessed with that perspective, and then know how to translate it into product.
Interesting.
So it's like that combination of being super technical and very product focused, but tying that to being user centric. And it's very nuanced, because I meet a lot of brilliant technical founders who want to build a great product and they are not thinking about the user. They're like, I'm going to build this thing.
Yep.
Like, I think it's going to be really cool tech, but it's not really for someone else.
Totally.
You know, it's like not really understanding what the user perspective is.
Totally.
And they were just so customer obsessed. And by the way, that comes out in so many other ways too. It's not just like the product and tech, but like for Drata, like the customer support. One of the things they did really early is they would send like champagne bottles to the Drata customers when they hit SOC 2. And then customers that would become marketing for Drata, because then they would like post about it, because they're like, I just got this like sick champagne bottle. Like,
and
you know,
they're
it was
compliant.
just, yeah. And it was like this focus on like the customer that came up in so many different ways.
Awesome.
Not just the product, but the product like as like the most important.
Totally.
Like that is what I look for. That's what I want to see with like the technical founders that I back.
Just out of curiosity, right now, we're in San Francisco. What is like modern technical fund? You mentioned, I think we're working downtown right now at like Canopy or something like that. I'm over at Shack 15. Like, are you in the office a bunch? Like, a day in the life of like Robby right now? like how does the day start? Are we going to the gym in the morning? Like I tell myself I'm going to do every day, but I never go. Or is it like, what does the day in the life look like?
Wait, okay. I'm just going to give you the reel on this, because it's so funny, especially when you see these like crazy morning routines. So like I wake up pretty early. I wake up at like 6:15, 6:30. And then I immediately am on my phone, like checking email, answering things. Like people always get like weird messages from like, you know what I mean? Like right when I wake up. So that's like me from like 6:15, 6:20 to like 7. I try to work out, but then like, to be honest, it gets really like condensed. So I do like these really, really quick, like 15, 20 minute workouts, try to eat something.
Is that like at home?
Yeah, usually at home. Like if I can't, I only really have time to do classes like on weekends, like maybe once a week if like it's a slow day for some reason. So then, but then I have a lot of meetings that are like, sometimes I'll have meetings at 7:30 or a lot at like 8, 8:30 with Israeli companies, like either the ones I've invested in or ones I'm talking to, because of the time difference. So my days start pretty early. And then from there, it's just like so many meetings. So I usually won't work out if I'm going to go work from Canopy.
Yep.
I do like record the open source podcast. So if I'm doing that, I do that at home. But it's just like a ton of meetings. Like every day I'm having like 10 to 12 meetings. And I'm like a heavy extrovert, so it works. So I'm just like, okay, let's do it. So it really ends up being a combination of like every day is anywhere from like 2 to 4 new founder meetings. I'm usually talking to at least 1, if not 2 of my portfolio companies. But I'm talking to all of them all the time on like Slack, text, whatever, and like random calls when things are going on. I spend a lot of time with like CISOs, CTOs, engineering friends. And then if I'm like diligencing something, then I'm playing with their product, or I'm like trying to get back channel references on them. Sometimes. And then like I usually work like, I know, I end up eating dinner really late, because I'll usually just work until like I have dinner or whatever. And a lot of times it's like 8:39, and then I'll just like keep kind of like tinkering away on different things. But then I travel a lot too. So I try to travel on Sundays if I can, especially when I'm going to Israel. Actually, Israel I travel Saturdays because they work Sundays, just to like have more time. But it's a lot of ball juggling, especially because it's like team of 1.
I love it. So it is a team of 1. It's a team of 1 right now.
Actually, I should not say that. A team of 1 full-time, but my advisors are insanely helpful and insanely valuable, and they're all working with me part-time.
Totally. And I looked at them before this, and you have such like exceptional advisors. It's honestly, it's really cool. It's really cool. All right, rapid fire. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is the investor or firm right now that you admire most?
I think so, like I still would say Cyberstars, just from what they built. But I would say, just to say that, like, to talk about something a little bit different, I think like any fund that comes out and does something different from what everybody else is doing is really interesting. And like Thrive is a really good example of that. Like they came out and like any stage, want to be the like biggest investor in some of the most important companies, and like they just did something very different and operate very different. So I feel like I see that and I'm like, oh, that's impressive. Like I like someone who just comes in and like does something that's different.
We just put out this like gravity index on at the end of every call that I meet an investor in a candidate capacity. They're already kind of thinking about like their short list of top firms they want to work for. I ask like, who are your top 2 or 3 firms that you want to work for right now? We pulled the data, bless granola, by the way, for like all of that, right? But pulled the data, it was Thrive was on the top spot, Sequoia was 2, Green Oaks 3, but Thrive had almost 2x the Sequoia mentions.
Yeah.
It was, they're clearly like, on top, right? And that I love it. It matches up with kind of what you're
I'm very
saying.
consensus.
Very consensus. One LP who made a real difference in the MTF story, and I know you've mentioned a couple already.
So I would also say Jake and Albert and the team at Level, and like not just so they did an insanely effective diligence process, but then also like after they invested, they've been so helpful and open with me. And I think like having a trusted relationship with like one of your big LPs where you can like WhatsApp them and like talk to them about anything. And also like Jake just like works on my cadence. Like I feel like he's also always working.
Totally.
So it could be like, like Sunday at like 6:30 a.m. and I could like message him and I know he'd respond like almost immediately. And like there's just something to that. So I think he's just like on that same cadence. So I'm very, very grateful to work with them.
100%. And since you mentioned him, I will mention he was the first LP that you had introed me. So he was the inaugural LP in the Nucleus LP network. And
love it.
I love him.
The premier network.
The premier network.
Emerging manager LPs.
Watch out. And he runs a hybrid fund. I love like the models like a little bit different.
Yeah.
I tremendous fan. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Of course.
Okay. One infra or security company outside of the portfolio that you really admire.
God, there are so many.
Not for long though.
Well,
they'll all be in the portfolio 5 years from now.
No, that's so true. So I really admire what Paul's doing at BrowserBase because I think like going after building a new primitive and like it's really a bold mission. And like what Stagehand does and like how it enables so many different applications. And like he even came out with Director, which allows like less technical or like non-technical folks to like build a bunch of browser automations. It's just super ambitious and super hard. And like also he's a solo founder. So I would say as far as like the new AI infra founders, he impresses me the most.
That's Paul Klein, right?
Yeah.
My cousin. No,
that's your. Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but he's a homie. I love him. I root. He's like one of my favorite founders, like for sure, right now on the planet. I got you there. That was a good one. So, what about you mentioned? I feel like some emerging managers, like you guys really do support each other.
Yeah,
which is awesome. Are there like, who are like one or two other emerging managers that are building right now? Maybe they closed their fund one. Maybe they're working on closing their fund one, right? Like that you think really highly of, you admire, you're rooting for, and you think will be successful.
Oh, for sure. So many. I'm really impressed with like the talent going out and building their own funds right now. Like the OG emerging manager who's just amazing when it comes to technical investing is Tim Chen, who's like my like homie. We've done so many investments together. He's just like done an amazing job. Like his first couple of funds were not super easy to raise because he was technical, he was a founder, and like at the time everybody was like, oh, he doesn't have any venture experience. How is he going to do this? And then he got into companies like Tabular. Like he's just amazing. But he's like a little bit later stage. Of the ones that started in my cohort, God, there's so many that are amazing. One who's outside of my space, but she is such a fucking badass is Anne-Lee Skates, building Parable. And she's become like because we invested in like very different things, but she's super, super smart. And like a lot of my like confidence around like how to manage LPs and how to fundraise and like really going in and understanding that like I'm a valuable product that like even despite it being a bad, like a tough fundraising environment that like LPs would be like lucky to invest in me and like have the confidence to call final close. A lot of that came from her.
Totally.
She spun out of Andreessen and she's just like phenomenal. Like she's building this fund called Parable and like she's just like amazing.
You just made my day. I hate when I don't know like great, investors starting funds and I haven't heard about it. Darn it. Like what the heck? You hit a little bit already on like advice to other emerging managers out there that are like starting to raise the fund one or whatnot. Yeah. Anything you want to add there? I mean, the reason I'm asking, right, it started Nucleus purely to support the emerging and breakout managers. The emerging managers typically don't need to hire partners, right? And that's like why my focus is on the partner GP front. But trying to build up goodwill with this cohort, one of them are honestly nuggets of wisdom from folks like you who've successfully raised in just like a brutal environment. Anything to add to what you had mentioned earlier on the advice?
Yeah, momentum is really important. So I think like for me, leaving and then immediately starting to fundraise was like really, really good because I had momentum around like, you know, people knew that I left. They knew I was starting to fund. And then it was like I was fundraising. And you just want to kind of keep having things that you're like updating potential LPs on. So it was like, did first close, did my first investment. And by the way, that first investment was exactly in line with the kind of investing I'll be doing. It wasn't just a small check. Oh, I made my second investment. Oh, I just brought another LP. Like that momentum really matters. So I think like keeping that up and it's funny because companies, you need this like momentum too, but like momentum matters.
How do people reach you? And like what types of people do you just genuinely enjoy connecting with?
So, you know, it's funny. I have made a lot of connections through cold DMs in general. Like for instance.
Are they on X? Are they email? Are they LinkedIn?
I actually, it depends on the connection, right? And like what the purpose is. I actually prefer X and LinkedIn in the sense of like, I think there should always be like a really good, well thought out reason to connect with someone. Like I get a lot of people that DM me for like random reasons, but like if someone's like, I read this thing that you wrote and I'm actually also exploring this space, like, can we talk more about it? I don't even really care where that person came from, but it's like, oh, like there's something that we can connect on and talk about. So like, that's the kind of stuff I look for. It's funny. One of my best friends is Lee Marie, who's at Kleiner, partner there.
Amazing.
And I met her through X. I can't remember which one of us DM'd the other.
I think I did too.
It's actually so funny because she like came into venture and also has like had one of the most insanely impressive like first few years in venture. And she started writing about the data stack and she like just broke it down in such first principle ways. And I was like, this is not your typical VC content. This is like very well thought out. And so I DM'd her and I was like, you're very smart. And then we ended up meeting for like vegan sushi or something. But anyway, I like met her through it. But it was like literally because I was like, oh, like it's not just a random reach out of like, oh, hi, we should connect. It's like, I've been following your stuff and you're like really smart. And it seems like we're thinking about things similarly in like certain ways. So I think that's what makes a good reach out is like, there's a reason to connect, a reason for both of you to connect, not just like it being one-sided of like, help me in some capacity. It's like, oh, we should connect for these reasons that'll help both of us.
I love it. So the last thing I'll like plug, we're building this Rising Stars graphic. The team has worked a ton on diligencing this and have both you and Leah Marie in the Rising Stars graphic.
Dude, Leah Marie should be like way above me.
No.
Leah Marie's like God status. I'm like.
But I think it's funny that you mentioned her. We have you like both on and we're like dropping in a couple of weeks or whatnot. But I'm super proud of the team. They put a ton of time in. There's some like awesome people on that and you're definitely in the mix. And I genuinely appreciate you doing this.
Oh, of course. This was great.
Vibe check confirmed. I knew it was there already, but now it's like absolutely confirmed.
I love it. This is awesome.
Let's get out of here.